All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live, Buffalo, Sal Maiorana, Rochester, Democrat, and Chronicle. As always, here we are at the bye week, and here we are 6 games, Sal, into the season. And you and I have covered this league for a long time. And if anything, whether it's a 16 or now a 17 game schedule, it kind of at some point teaches you and reveals what you truly are, right? Yeah. And I don't know that it's necessarily fully done that with the Buffalo Bills, but it has to a great extent with these 2 straight losses to the national narrative, the local narrative, and I think this is justified, I think it has a lot of people wondering just how actually good is this football team.
Yeah, I think this is a team riddled with questions all of a sudden. Now, look, I mean, if the Bills had beaten the Patriots last week, or well, whatever it is, week and a half ago now, I would have picked the Falcons to win this game Monday night because I do think that Buffalo was due for a stinker. The stinker didn't really come against the Patriots. That was a competitive game. A couple things went the other way, and they lost. So I was thinking, this is why I picked the Bills to win Monday night. I thought, okay, they got the loss out of the way. This is a team that can bounce back. They're talented. They should go to Atlanta, get themselves right before they go to the bye. I was not expecting to see what happened in the game Monday night. They were horrible, Adam. That's as bad as they've played, well, clearly, since the game in Houston last year, the Week 5 loss, which was 23-20, probably one of the worst games of Josh Allen's career. They haven't played this bad since then, and I'm counting the playoff loss because they weren't bad in that game. They weren't terrible. So I was surprised by the level of ineptitude on both sides of the ball. Their defense was so egregiously horrible in the first half, and then the offense was just as horrible in the second half. So, yeah, we have a lot of questions to talk about today because I'm starting to think, Adam, that we may have overrated this Bills team. We may have gotten a little bit too caught up in 4-0 against 4 teams that have turned out to be absolute dregs of the earth. The Bills have got a lot of answering to do right now.
Yeah, so let's go there. I mean, that was kind of the next angle I was going to take with you. I mean, you can't ignore the fact. Look, they should be 3-3, in my opinion. I mean, without the miracle comeback against Baltimore, they very easily could be sitting at 3-3 right now. But the teams they've beaten, it's well documented, and part of the national narrative that I mentioned, they're 3-21, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to take that into account, I think, at this point in the year, and sort of whether you're talking about the defense, the poor tackling, the run defense, what's going on in the secondary, all of those things. Offense, last couple of games, making mistakes, now starting to turn the football over. And, oh, by the way, a receiving core that I know we'll spend a good deal of time talking about here in the show and have already. What do they really have there? And what dynamic are they missing with the trade deadline coming up? All those sorts of things. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, you're at a point where there's a lot of questions and the type of issues that could really keep this team from getting over the top. And are they overrated at this point? 4-2, 5th in the AFC, and 2nd in the division behind the New England Patriots. That just kind of leaves you shaking your head, doesn't it?
You do, because you think back to 2 weeks ago, it's amazing what one game can do in the NFL standings. That game has flipped everything in the AFCs. The Patriots are now in control of the division. If the Bills had won that game, they're 3 games up on the Patriots with the head-to-head. So they could have easily survived a loss to Atlanta, go to your bye week, figure it out. Now you're 2 games in a row you've lost. You've played poorly in both. You're not even in first place in the division, let alone all this talk about number 1 overall seed, and the Bills are finally going to the Super Bowl this year, which again leads me to the point, Adam. It's so idiotic to me when media and fans start thinking ahead in week 4. There's just so many things that can happen in a season. Number 1 being injuries, because you just can't predict when those are going to happen. It's so silly. I try to stay away from it as much as I can. I'm sure you do too. I never think about January when it's October. It's just silly. And all these people, these Bills fans, they're going to go 15-2, and who's going to beat them? Well, for crying out loud, it's the NFL. Every game, I can't drill it into people's heads firmly enough because nobody ever takes me seriously. Sean McDermott's right. Every game is hard. These are professional teams. I don't care what their record is. The Falcons wanted nothing more than to kick the Bills' ass because they probably heard all week, oh, the Bills are coming off a loss. We talked to Ovi Maguli about it. He said he was worried that the Bills were going to come in because they had just lost the game. The Falcons heard that all week. They had 2 weeks to prepare, and they said, what are you kidding me? We're going to kick your ass. And that's exactly what happened. Every game's hard, Adam. There are no walkovers in the NFL. When they go to Carolina next week, are you kidding me? Are the Bills supposed to overlook Carolina right now, who are probably going to be 4-3 after they beat the Jets this week, I would think. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this. You can't be thinking about Super Bowl in October. It's going to bite you in the ass.
All right. So I would say there's an argument on this point, too. I would say the bye is well-timed for them. I mean, after these 2 straight losses and what they've revealed, it gives them an opportunity to kind of reflect on this, address some things. They don't have a lot of time. They have a lot to correct in a very short period of time. Let's start by talking about the offense here, right?
Okay.
Held to 20 and 14 points in each of these last 2 games after going 30-plus in each of the first 4. And, I mean, the big question is, how do you fix what's going on? Receiver is probably the most likely area that you would focus on. And with the trade deadline coming up, do you look to add one? Because I think that despite Brandon Beane's objections and some of his heated comments when the receiver group was questioned, and do they have a guy that can take the top off a defense, all of those things, he brushed back on that. Jeremy White, WGR, that all comes to mind, right? Well, now, I mean, does he need to make a move, I guess, is the question, in order to really address this and put this offense and this group in a place where they can achieve the goals they've set out for this season?
Yeah, I mean, look, Adam, we could say they need to make a move at the trade deadline, but they are really pressed. I mean, people don't want to hear this, but they don't have any salary cap space. So the type of player that you're going to try to acquire, I've got a story that's going to publish, I think, Thursday morning online, trade possibilities, right? I listed a few guys, some corners and some receivers, and a guy like Jacoby Myers. Okay. Who else? There was Rashid Shaheed. There's been a lot of talk about him from the Saints because he's a speedy guy. Okay. So you make that move. Both of those guys you could fit them under the salary cap. You'd have to do some massaging, but again, what are you getting in Rashid Shaheed or Jacoby Myers? What are you really getting? Are they any better than what you already have? You've got a bunch of mediocrities. I would consider both of those guys mediocrity. So what, are you just changing to make a change? The only thing that Beane could truly do is swing for the fences and make a major player acquisition, which would cost him a major player off his team. Say A.J. Brown. Okay. There's been a lot of talk about A.J. Brown being a pain in the ass that he is, and he is a royal pain in the ass. So I wonder what you do when you bring him in. And I can't see the Eagles traded him because clearly the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs, they're not going to want to trade a guy like that. But say they did, for the Bills to get him, I think his salary, his remaining salary this year, I want to say is like $8 or $9 million when you prorate what's already happened. Where are you going to fit $8 million on your cap? That puts you $6 million over. So you're going to have to move somebody very important and well paid in that trade. Is he going to want to do that? I don't know. He loves his team so much. Is he really going to want to make that move? So people can talk trade deadline all they want, but you got to remember there is a salary cap and there's only so much he can do. And you just wonder what's he going to bring in that's going to really truly be any better than what he already has here. At least it's at receiver. We're going to talk about cornerback after. There's probably a couple things he can do there, but let's stick with offense right now. I don't see what they can do. You know what they could do, I guess, Adam? And no one's going to want to hear this. It might be Gabe Davis. I mean, Gabe Davis is on the practice squad. He's still recovering from his knee injury. I have to believe now that they signed him with the express purpose of getting him to the 53-man roster at some point. I'm thinking they probably were hoping after the bye for sure. and maybe a few weeks after. But given what's happened, maybe they have to accelerate that. He might end up being the move, Adam, because that would be a really cheap way. You'd keep under the cap by bringing him back. Again, I don't know what you're getting in Gabe Davis, but fans might have to prepare for that being the move they make on offense.
All right. And what are you going to get back for him?
Well,
what are you really going to get?
He's already on he's already on the team, but you're talking about what's he going to give you? And yeah, what is he going to give you? Right. He's got a history with Josh Allen. He knows the offense. Obviously he's had some good game. And, you look at his numbers. I think he averaged like 16 yards a catch in his 4 seasons with Buffalo, which would be easily the best on the team right now. He had 27 touchdowns as a Bill, the playoff game, obviously. So he's a guy who's done something here. He went to Jacksonville. It didn't work out. Maybe he comes back to Buffalo and it works again for him. Maybe that is the legitimate move. But again, you don't think you're going to go out and get, some superstar. Justin Jefferson's not coming to town, people. Jamar Chase is not coming to town. Guys who are going to really make a difference. So it's hard. When you're paying the quarterback what you're paying them, and then some of these other guys that they're paying, it's really hard to do anything meaningful at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I just don't think that Davis is the answer. He might be something you throw in there to mix it up, but he's not the type of receiver, right, that we're talking about them needing to acquire. I guess that's my point.
Right.
Okay.
But I guess if they have to go out and get a cornerback, then Gabe Davis is really the only option they would have at receiver.
Right. Or safety.
What else could they possibly do?
Or safety, which is also a hot topic, right? That's the flip side of this discussion. Your point, and I guess mine is too, they've made their bed at this position, and they're probably going to have to lie in it at this point, which, oh, by the way, includes Keon Coleman. And that game the other night only added to the list of questions and uncertainty about him, right?
Look, Adam, their wide receiver core, Brandon Beane has not constructed a very good group here. Now, I was on board with the Palmer signing. I liked the player, but again, he was a number 2 or even a number 3 with the Chargers, right? They had Keenan Allen there. They had Mike Williams was there. Then Ladd McConkey last year. He was never their go-to guy. He was a nice player to have, but that's what the Bills have throughout the whole wide receiver room. Players who are nice to have in a particular role. They don't have a stud. When Stephon Diggs was here, Adam, I remember I must have said it to myself or out loud in the press box 100 different times. What would they have done without Stephon Diggs in a particular game? Because the plays that he made, the great plays, the catches, all these things that he did for Josh Allen in that offense, I know I've said it 100 times to myself or out loud. Man, what would they be without Diggs right now? Well, now we're seeing what they are without Diggs. And I'm not saying that they needed to bring him back. I understand why they moved on, but they have failed miserably to replace him. I mean, they just failed miserably. Curtis Samuel, total bust. Josh Palmer, way too early. I mean, but I think Josh Palmer is going to be just a guy. Keon Coleman, I've told you a million times, I never liked the pick in the first place. His rookie season, injury or not, I knew there were going to be problems with him. We saw it the other night. AJ Terrell basically traveled with him, which is unbelievable right there, but completely took him out of the game. He was useless. And I think that's going to be the case a lot of the time. I think Keon Coleman was a bad pick, especially early in the second round. Khalil Shakir, a nice guy to have on your team. He's a 5th-round pick who does what he does well. But does he scare a defense? No, he doesn't scare a defense. He doesn't alter coverage in any way. So this is kind of on Brandon Beane. He has put together a wide receiver room that is absolutely middling, and it's holding this team back now.
And you can mention Elijah Moore as well, right?
Elijah Moore, another guy, just a guy, right?
And they didn't have Kincaid, right?
Right.
And he was effective.
But even there, how many times have we talked about him, Adam?
Well, that's just the point.
Not being a difference maker.
That's the point. Yeah. I was about to make. He was effective against New England, but we all know the road it's taken him to really get sort of to this point. And I don't know that he makes the difference in that loss to the Atlanta Falcons the other night. He's another player who's really taken some time for them to get the return on a high pick like that, right? Yeah. So let's get to coaching here. All right. And speaking about, over time in the NFL, what it reveals, I mean, coordinators, right? Teams wisen to you, what you have, how you try and use the talent that you have. Um, Joe Brady, for all the credit he deserves in coming in for Dorsey and elevating things and making better use of the run game and all of that. The big question now is he schematically, they've been schooled really the last 2 weeks, right? What New England did defensively and then what Atlanta was able to do. And then you have, it forces you to do things, right? But or whatever, and react to that. Is he getting too cute with the end around, that sort of a thing? What's your take on where he's at in terms of orchestrating this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I've hated these calls that he's made the last couple weeks. The last 2 weeks resulted in fumbles. They won the other night. They recovered it, but it knocked them out of. If Josh Allen pushes forward, it doesn't get it. You've still got 4th and 1, so you do it again or hand off to Cook or whatever. By losing 4 yards, now I wasn't totally on board with McDermott punting there, but they ended up punting and wasted an opportunity to tie the game on that series. I hate these calls. I hate gadget plays. I've always hated gadget plays. Once in a while they're going to work, but my feeling on gadget plays, Adam, they're great for college, by the way. You could have all the fun you want in college. In the NFL, especially today, these teams are so athletically gifted and fast that you're not going to fool teams too often with a reverse or an end around or whatever, inside handoff, because they react so quick and they have the speed. Even if they're faked out initially, they have the speed to get over there and stop the play. That's why I don't like those kind of plays. In this case, it didn't even matter because he fumbled the ball, never had a chance to make anything of it. James Cook. Where the hell is James Cook? Why did he play 53% of the snaps in this game? It was a 2-score game at half. They immediately got it back to 1 score. 4th quarter, I think he had 1 carry. He's off the field on most of the 3rd downs for Ty Johnson, who has been useless this year. Ty Johnson was a nice little player last year. He caught a few teams off guard, made some plays. They're wise to him now. He comes on the field. There's no threat. There's no threat with Ty Johnson. James Cook on the field, there's a threat, right? So I don't know what Brady was doing, why he got away from the running game the way he did, why he's got James Cook on the sideline. Sean McDermott, I think, is asking the same question because he even told us in the presser that they'd already had to talk about, where is James Cook? I think part of the problem, Adam, and it all goes back to receiver. He's trying to find ways to make splash plays because he knows he's not getting them from his receivers. He can drop back Josh Allen all he wants, but if nobody's getting open, now he's exposing his quarterback who has to run around and scramble. And I don't think they want to have Josh Allen do too much of that. But this is on Brady to figure it out, because what you saw the other night, the Falcons blitzed 56% of the time because they realized these receivers stink. And if we get after Allen, he's going to have nowhere to go with the ball because nobody's going to be open immediately. They don't get separation immediately. What's he going to do? Well, we saw what happened the other night. He couldn't do anything. So they've already set a blueprint for the rest of the league, and it's going to be on Brady now to figure out some solutions.
Yeah, your point on Cook is extraordinarily well taken, because in order to set up splash plays, I mean, what they really need and where they've been at their best in this iteration, right, is when they have that balance. And McDermott said it the other night. I mean, they come out in the second half, they establish some rhythm, and then they got out of it after that. They kind of lost it after the beginning of the second half. And I think he's alluding to, in his response and his approach to this very much includes James Cook or a lack thereof, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when they got the ground game going.
Right. That first series after half, they got it going. And I think, I don't have the play-by-play in front of me, but I think the next series then, so now they've got a chance to tie the game. I think he threw 3 straight passing plays and was 3 and out. I don't think there was a run in that series. Well, what the hell are you doing? You just watched your offensive line gouge them for 5 yards a carry. The offensive line is a very good run blocking line. They were controlled. Atlanta is aggressive. They pass rush, but they're not a great run defense. The Bills proved that. So the very next series, what the hell are you doing? Like, I just didn't understand the game plan or the flow of what Brady was trying to accomplish. And like I said, they're going to see more of that now, and they're going to have to figure out how to combat a team that's going to blitz them like that.
All right, let's flip it and go to defense. I mean, that first half,
Wow.
my goodness, between Bijan Robinson and London and what was going on the 81-yard touchdown run from Robinson. I'm trying to think of a time, so when I've seen so many players out of position, right? Bishop, the angle he had on him. I mean, talk about breaking down on a play doesn't even do that justice. It understates the catastrophe that play was and what was going on that side of the ball in the first half. That speaks to Babbage.
We've seen a few Derrick Henry runs have done that too. It was the same thing. Players out of position, out of gaps, right?
So it brings questions about Babbage, right? And of course, we get the play calling, and does McDermott, take it back over, especially in a bye week, that sort of a thing. Diagnose defensively, and I know we've talked about this in previous shows, but at this point, based on the 6-game sample and what you've seen, what's going on there?
Yeah, look, my problem with the defense, Adam, is that it's an undersized defense. And even being undersized, it's not particularly fast. I mean, it's one thing if you've got undersized guys who are great, fast athletes who can cover ground and do all those things. The Bills don't have that. They have a bunch of undersized guys, is what they have. And I think another part of this, Adam, that I think maybe people don't want to take seriously, this is 9 years of this defense, right? Bobby Babbage has been there for all 9 years. Not the coordinator, but he's been in the building operating under this Sean McDermott defense for 9 years. And I just think teams are just wise to it now, Adam. They know what the Bills are going to do. There's nothing that's different that they're doing out there. They play base nickel. They've used more 4-3 this year out of necessity, but they're basically a nickel-based team that you can run against. And when you've got corners, Benford has not played well this year. Trey White is not good. And Taron Johnson hasn't been Taron Johnson. When all of a sudden you can run against a team, but then you can also throw because they're not covering. And then let's not even talk about how bad the safeties are. What do the Bills do? Now the Bills are susceptible to everything. They used to be able to, okay, you're going to bend against the run, but when it comes right down to it, you're going to play the pass really well and you'll get off the field, hopefully with a field goal. Well, hopefully with a punt, maybe a field goal. That's how they've played defense for all these years. Now they don't do either of those things well. And it's the same scheme over and over and over. There's just nothing. There's nothing really different. A couple of the players have changed, but they do the same thing. And I got to believe the teams are smart, right? They've seen, for instance, the Jeff Ulbrich, of the defensive coordinator for the Falcons. He saw the Bills, right? He knew what the Bills offense was going to do. Well, that's the same way on the other side of the ball. Every one of these offensive coordinators knows what Buffalo is going to do on defense. Let's go attack it. And they are.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question about that. And it gets to philosophy, like you said. And now there's the discussion. And look, you hear, it's ridiculous. You hear fire Sean McDermott, right? And I don't want to necessarily go down. No, that's not going to happen. And I don't want to go down that path. And I'm not trying to. Let me make that perfectly clear. However, where I am going with this is the philosophy, how this defense is continuously constructed. And look, they got bigger and stronger with Deion Walker. Look what's happening there, right? Yeah. That's kind of paying off. That's been a positive for them. But again, philosophically, how this thing is constructed between Bean and McDermott, and it begs the question, I suppose, okay, Sean, we're putting a lot of resources on that side of the football, right? You're a defensive-minded head coach. I mean, his feet need to be held to the fire on this. It's not just Babbage.
Well, you're right. I agree. But I will also hold Bean's feet to the fire a little bit too. Look, their talent evaluation has not been great lately.
Oh, no question.
It just hasn't. They have not. The Bills. We talk about Josh Allen, and the only other playmaker on the team on offense is James Cook. On the defense, Adam, who would you even point to who is a premier playmaker on that team. Joey Bosa 5 years ago, you would have said him. That's not the same Joey Bosa that they have today. Greg Rousseau, look, he's a nice player, continues to underwhelm as far as I'm concerned. Ed Oliver, same way. Number 9 overall pick. He's been a good player for the Bills. I mean, not that Pro Bowls mean anything, but no Pro Bowls out of Ed Oliver. He's a guy. He's a good player. What else? Terrell Bernard is a 225-pound linebacker. Nice player. Certainly doesn't scare anybody. That guy the other night, Divine Diablo for the Falcons, I'd take him in a heart. Same size guy, 225 pounds. That guy was everywhere, making plays all over the field. I'd take him, right? Who else do they have at linebacker? Milano, always hurt. And we already talked about the secondary. They have just failed miserably in the secondary. They have never gotten over the fact that Trey Rice not a Pro Bowler anymore, and Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are gone. They just haven't recovered from that. So you look at the draft. All right, Hairston's hurt. We'll see on him. TJ Sanders, hurt. We'll see on him. Landon Jackson has played 2 games. I haven't noticed him once on the field. You talked about Walker, only guy who's producing in this draft class. Jordan Hancock, they got injuries all over in the secondary. He can't get on the field. Other teams get their rookies on the field, man, and they contribute. The Bills rookies have not contributed at all this year. And I know it's injuries too, but man, you got to look at the roster construction. They have not put together enough true great players. I mean, not everybody's going to be great, but you got to have a few. And they don't have a few great players. They have one for sure. And you could count Cook, I think, is the other. Who else? Who else on this team is a great player?
It's true. He's done far better in the mid to late rounds in terms of the talent acquisitions that he's made.
But you need impact,
those guys. You need impact at the top of the draft. High impact. It's the lifeblood.
It's great to find mid. Right. It's great to find mid-range guys because you got to have those guys on your team. But you need some star players. You need guys that are going to dominate at their position. They don't have it. That's what's so maddening about this roster construction.
Well, that's what I think is going on here. Is I think you're seeing sort of the reality when you have an elite quarterback like Josh Allen, right, and an offense that over time has produced the way this one has, right? It carries you to a great extent, but over time there's kind of an attrition and an erosion, right? And now you're seeing the reality of the lack of impact of some of the other high picks that they've had. It manifests itself in games like Monday night, right? Christian Benford, former 6th-round pick, right? They give him the contract extension, all of that. What the hell's gone wrong with him? Where is he at right now?
I know.
Right?
Benford,
what's your take there?
Benford, Bernard, Shakir, they invested in these players. And you could say right now that none of those guys are playing at an elite level. They're getting paid pretty well. None of them are getting paid. None of them are playing elite. Greg Rousseau is in that mix too. Cook is the one guy that they gave a contract extension to who is clearly playing at his new payment level. He's earning his money. Nobody else on that extension list group is doing it yet for me. So look, they've got a lot of things they got to figure out. This is a team that I think we being right here, probably overrated them a little bit, thinking that Josh Allen's going to solve all problems. And that clearly isn't the case. And they got to pivot and start understanding what's gone wrong and have solutions. And we're going to see what Joe Brady and Bobby Babbitt are made up here in the next few weeks.
Okay, so you got Hoyt and Ogunjobi, right? 6-game suspensions. Coming back on the defensive side, that'll be a discussion point during the bye week here as well. They're eligible to return. I think more of Hoyt than I do Ogunjobi at this point, but how do you see them factoring in?
Yeah, I mean, they're coming at a great time because the defensive tackle position is a mess. Now you're going to have no Daquan Jones. That sounds like that's going to be a while. He said, Sean said he popped his calf. Well, the guy's 33 years old with a popped calf. I'm thinking we're not going to see him for quite a while, if at all, the rest of the year. TJ Sanders is down at least 3 more games. He's on injured reserve. So you got to get Ogunjobi is coming back at a great time. I mean, I've had enough of Jordan Phillips, for crying out loud. Jordan Phillips has to play the other night. And he's already elevated because TJ Sanders out. And then they lose Jones. So now they got to play Jordan Phillips more enough.
Right.
Enough with Jordan Phillips. So they need Ogunjobi. And I wasn't even all that high on him, Adam. There was a point where you look at the depth chart and you're like, man, maybe they're just going to bring Ogunjobi, have him, fulfill his suspension, and then just release him and save some money on the salary cap. They can't do that now because these guys they're just too light-handed in the middle of that line. So Hoyt, I think, will be a good player. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how they deploy him in this defense. He's the kind of guy that, he can do a lot of different things. So I think he will definitely help. And you're right. They're coming back at a good time because they need some injection here of some talent.
And all of these shortcomings, what we've outlined here over 30 minutes now, right, manifests itself, like I said, in games. Last 6 turnovers and 30 penalties over the last 3 games.
Brutal.
All right, so they've got to.
Brutal.
I mean, there's discipline. There's a lot of factors here that when you say you have a lot to correct, I mean, those numbers, particularly the penalties, I mean, the turnovers had been uncharacteristic for them. Now we're starting to see them surface at some key moments and those types of things. But 30 penalties in 3 games. They got better against Atlanta, but not good enough.
Untenable. They, and Sean pointed that out. They police that stuff. But for Christ's sakes, the first play of the game, are you kidding me? He's offsides. Greg Rousseau's line didn't even go offsides. He lined up offsides. The stupidest penalty outside of delay of game when the quarterback is staring at the clock. It's the dumbest penalty in football. And that wiped out. Who knows where that game would have gone, Adam? First play of the game, they get a fumble recovery at midfield. Who knows? That game could have been entirely different. Flag, offsides. And then, of course, the usual third down defense, impossible to play in the NFL. The Bills gave them, I think it was 3. I think there was 3 plays on third down that gave the Falcons a first down because of penalties. It just can't happen. Can't happen. They got to figure that out. They've got to stop being, they were so good the first 3 weeks of the season penalty-wise, and that's gone completely in the crapper now.
All right. So just to kind of wrap this up here, we've talked about, has the local media, has the national media, has everyone really kind of overrated this football team? I mean, they were Super Bowl favorites and still are. But now FanDuel has Buffalo and Kansas City at plus 650 to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Tied, right? The complexion is starting to change. And I think that based on what we've seen and what we've summarized here over this past half hour here on this show as they hit the bye week, I think those questions are very much justified, don't you?
Absolutely. Look, last year they lost those 2 games in a row. They were brutal in both, just like this year. They ripped off 7 straight wins and 10 out of 11, I think. They lost the last game then after that to the Patriots when nobody played. So that's kind of what has to happen now. I mean, they've got the bye week to figure some stuff out. They're going down to Carolina to play a game that, look, they're better than Carolina. So you got to go down there and win the game. They're a better team than the Carolina Panthers. I don't care what anybody tells you. So go down there, take care of business. And then if they do that, then we're going to see what they're made of because the Chiefs are coming to town. And Adam, I'm sure you watched some of their game the other night against the Lions. I did from my hotel room. That's the team again, man. I don't care what anybody tells you. The Chiefs are once again the team to beat in the AFC. They're going to get Rashee Rice back now. That offense, suddenly they are back to where they were a few years. They've had a couple rough years on offense over there, and their defense has been really good. Now their offense is kind of getting back to where it was. Now you're seeing Mahomes play the way we've been so used to seeing him playing. They're going to be a bear to get through for the Bills and for every other team in the AFC. So your season is, these next 2 games are going to tell us an awful lot about the Bills.
Yeah, no, I think they are. And look, the Chiefs have shown through their reign here in the AFC and when they've won the Super Bowl, an ability to kind of round into form, right?
Yeah.
And that's what good teams do. Right. And look, the Bills have responded, you just pointed to last year, to this type of adversity and some of these performances well in the past, and they're going to have to again with a lot of questions about their roster and questions about what they can only correct so much so fast with the trade deadline, factoring that in coming up in the National Football League at this point. So that's going to do it. Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. For Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, I am Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Thanks for being with us here, as always.